Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Art of the Game over here at Cabot Crossing. And we are three game masters from all sorts of different games, different experiences. And we're going to share some tips and tricks and do a little debating and maybe some karate chopping or thumb wrestling. Who knows? And this was originally the brainchild, colon child. I don't know.
Colon child? What?
And here I am thinking, can we fit Master Debater in here somewhere? And you're like, holy.
I don't know why that came to thought.
That's not where children come from.
Yeah.
Really? Okay. Anyway.
Sorry, we're keeping that in. We can't re-record.
Right.
Okay.
But since you came up
too late to pull out now.
This series, why don't you tell us what we're doing today, Woody?
Okay, so this is a big one if you're a Rifts player, but I think it's coming up occasionally in 5e. Certainly wasn't first edition Pathfinder. But what you have is a situation where there are sometimes the developers put out a character class that ends up being a problem. The part that kind of got this whole started off is I was listening to an RPG show, and they had a Paladin in the party, and he ended up taking on a greater demon by himself and beat him solo. And the character's like level 10 or something. And he beat a guy that should have been a challenge for the entire party. And he literally beat him by himself. And the problem with the Paladin, for me, is that you can basically like convert your spell slots into damage. And everybody just does this all the time. You're basically incentivized not to cast spells. And you can wait to see the result of it. And you can wait until you get a critical hit and then spend your spell slots to get more damage. And so players do this all the time. And you have obscene amounts of damage, which I'll get to that later in the debate. But what this basically is you have this character class, the Paladin, which is frequently banned at the table. But yet people want to play it. So what do you do in this situation? And it's like, it is okay to ban a class, but it's also okay to change one. And there's also the fact is that like you as the GM have to set the standard, and you go, okay, well, certain classes for the kind of campaign we want to run maybe are not a good fit, and these are things that are going to come up, and so let's debate it, guys. We're because I know you guys necessarily don't agree with all these viewpoints off camera, but let's take it away. What do you guys feel about this?
Well, first of all, the latest version of 5e agrees with you. They nerfed it pretty bad, actually.
Oh, okay.
It actually upset a lot of people.
Yeah, I haven't actually looked at it too close, even though I've got the book right here. But
instead of being able to do it every attack, it now takes your bonus action to set up a divine smite now.
Oh, okay.
So it's different than like branding smite or something like that.
It's not automatic,
right?
Yeah.
And you have to do it beforehand, right?
Yeah. So you have to declare it before you attack?
Oh, no, actually you don't. I take that back. But it does take your bonus action to do still. So you can only do it once per turn.
Yeah.
But
divine smite, radiant damage, is that what it adds? Or?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Well,
2d8.
Well, the way it works, you get, if you spend a level 1 spell slot, you get 2d8, and then each additional spell slot increases it by +1. And the part that frustrates me is like, if you do the math, and you basically, if you had a level 20 character, if I've done the math correctly, you can get 56 d8 damage potentially out of this character one-on-one.
Sounds right.
Yeah. And that's double on a crit of 112 d8, and people will always wait for the crit. I mean, the guy that I'm quoting in this campaign critted 3 times against this greater demon in the fight.
Well, that's a bit lucky. I mean, crits are not easy in 5e.
I disagree, because
at best a 10% chance.
Yeah, but the thing is like, you will see people that will crit more frequently. Like, there are players that just do that, and it absolutely happens. So, but
you should check their dice.
Yeah.
We can have an episode on how you can check your dice to see if they're actually weighted. Yeah. There's a way you can do
it. Yeah. I have this glow in the dark D20, and I was noticing, because it's slightly translucent, one of the sides has a bubble on a corner, and I'm like, oh my God. I wonder if that matters.
I mean, real quick, it's kind of fun to do. You just take heated water, you put a bunch of salt and mix it till it dissolves, and let it cool down, and put the dice, and it'll float up to the top because of all the salt. And if you push it down, it floats up to different numbers every time, then it's not weighted some way. But if you push it down, it always comes up to the same side, it's weighted badly.
That's interesting.
Of course, you also end up with dice with a bunch of salt on it.
That's what freshwater's for.
Oh.
and a toothbrush, Greg.
But yeah, I don't know. In all my campaigns I've played, now granted, I haven't played a lot of high level ones, so I'll give that caveat. But I do remember that fighters by level 20 also get how many attacks? Like 4, right?
Yeah.
And if they're like a battle master, you're talking about a superiority die each one too, right? Which is going to add another D8.
Yeah, and they also get an action surge.
And an action surge, right?
Yeah.
And if they have like great weapon master, I mean.
and monks get extra attacks too.
Yeah. But monks never do too much damage in my experience. But the stunning strike.
With Divine Smite, if I'm reading it correct, don't they get like a max of how much they can do at a time, right?
They can do it as many spell slots as they have. Just one per attack.
Well, and the problem I have with it is the fact that they are absolutely incentivized not to use their spells, literally making their spell casting a useless class feature. And so, like with Cyber Symbiosis, obviously that was out for many reasons. But like, I've actually been engaged in a project of trying to rebuild the Paladin, and I've heavily nerfed, but like also making it more interesting. And I'm definitely not going to have a Paladin core class. And and this kind of gets into the thing where I think it's also okay. Like if you run into this problem where it's like this is a problem for your group, you are allowed to like you maybe not when you're the brand new GM, you should get your feet wet, but you can make changes to character classes. You can mix it up. You can reimagine a character class. And one of the things that I did, which I think is really interesting, and it's a concept that's a fairly new game mechanic in the industry, but I think it's compelling, is the idea of exploding dice. And I ended up
that's fun.
Yeah, I ended up taking the Divine Smite, just getting rid of it and making it an automatic thing with just triggers. And so if you don't know, exploding dice means that when you roll a maximum result, you automatically get a reroll. And so, and there's all kinds
of add to it, right?
Yeah, and you can perpetually do it. Like it theoretically could go on forever. But I like that idea as far as the game mechanic goes, because now you have a reason to cast your spells, because your spell slots are no longer tied to this ability, and it can trigger at random, and it may never trigger, or you can get it a lot. But it's not. I mean, you're not sitting there waiting for a critical hit to use this ability, and and it's way more exciting when it happens, because you don't know when it's going to trigger. And like I when we were playtesting it, one of my guys was fighting a really powerful demon that should have been a problem for him, and he got just super lucky and one-shotted it practically.
To be fair, your example guy who crit it 3 times would still have Divine Smite every time because they crit it 3 times.
Sure, but I mean, but for him though, when he did it, it was exciting and it was powerful, and the guys were like, but if he could just do it every time, he'd be like, okay, well he's kicking the enemy's ass again. Whoop-de-doo. I mean,
I would also say with the Paladin example, just to be not to play devil's advocate with the Paladin.
Sure. Yeah. Go ahead.
I feel like he's fighting a demon. I feel like that's like the perfect thing for a Paladin to be able to fight, like with the radiant damage and everything.
Absolutely.
If he was fighting a non-undead demon, it would have been a little bit more of a challenge, maybe.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but it's like, I think it's very telling how many people I've met that have banned Paladins. Like after allowing,
I never met anyone.
I've all the time.
I haven't
like you in 5e, like after a Paladin has been in the group once, usually the GM doesn't allow it again.
Because I always think of like a rogue with their sneak attack, because you can play it to where you can get quite a bit of damage.
They only get one a turn, but
yeah, but they only get one though. And
but they're also not a finite resource. Like, if you're gonna have a campaign where you only have one fight for every long rest, then I could see how it'd get annoying. But if you have any type of attrition at all, Paladins fall off fast. Yeah, because they're a one shot and go.
Yeah, and there needs to be more of that. Well, like in Palladium, one of the problems like you run into there, and I think you see this a lot with Pathfinder as well, first edition as well, is that because with Pathfinder had the problem where as they kept the game going, some of the older classes got obsolete compared to new ideas, right? And they weren't good at keeping it balanced. But like Palladium,
City Rats, where it's at, man.
Yeah. Well, see, with Palladium, the way they have done their games is it was intentionally built with characters different power levels, and it was never meant to be where everything goes. It was meant to be like you'd be giving you resources for any level of campaign you want. You could have a street level campaign, you could have a mega one. Like we were just talking about this, like in the Phase World source book, which CJ Corella, thank you for introducing power creep to the game. But so they introduced a character class, which is basically the Silver Surfer. These are the Cosmonites.
Cosmonites, yeah.
Yeah, so you can play. It's basically a power level wise. This is the Herald of Galactus, and the idea is this one character is as powerful as a spaceship, and they are OP as shit. And I don't think they're appropriate. But like,
I always thought what Palladium needed, which wasn't a concept yet, was like power, like in Mutants and Masterminds, they have power ranking levels. Like you can start a character at different levels, and it's more like you have street level heroes, at those different levels.
Yeah, they don't really get into it in that way. But the thing is that Cosmonite is appropriate for a really powerful campaign, but you wouldn't make it available you wouldn't have that guy next to the City Rat, like you were just talking about, which is like, your gang member or like, your hacker kind of character. And
what if you need to pick a lock? He's there.
Yeah, right, exactly. Or, well, I'll just beat the door down. But that's the thing is like, it's designed so you would, okay, well, the GM wants to have a game at a certain power level. These what's available, right? And so, and that's kind of like how it would be in a Pathfinder game too, because Pathfinder has so many class variants and they're not all appropriate. And you kind of have that a little bit in D&D 5e. They want it to all be equal, but it isn't though. And so, I think as a GM, you have to get used to the idea of you're setting the tone. You're basically the first name on the call sheet, and you're setting the tone for the campaign, and you have to be very confident in going, okay, well, this is not what I want to have. You're trying to create experience for your players, and it is okay to strike something from the roster, or like, yeah, we can allow it, but we're going to make some changes because this is OP, and I think that's okay. Like I really don't like the damage escalation of rogues either. But I think at higher levels that's a problem.
I like where I feel like in Pathfinder, I haven't done any of the adventure paths in second edition, but I feel like in first edition, I always had like a little player guide. You get the little player guide, and then you have each adventure book that leads up like 6 or 7 of them. And those player guides always gave guidance on like, you may not want to play this character class. This may not be very handy. And this could be a really good one. And I think that sounds like what you're thinking of. Like you need to think of that with your adventure whenever you set it up. Yeah. And maybe guide the players not to, pick certain classes or just tell them.
Well, I think you were saying more like feel free to ban things that you think are broken.
Yeah. Or right? Just ban it.
Well, and sometimes they are, like, even by level 6, a paladin's ability to like dish out pain is really starting to escalate, and they can do it like you literally have 6 opportunities to use that ability by level 6. And I know you had made the argument, Greg, well, there's Fireball, right? But Fireball gets a saving throw, and okay, so 8d6 damage, breaking it down in average of 7, that's only 28 damage, and if they make their saving throw, that's only 14 damage, right? So it's actually not that powerful, except for the fact that it distributes amongst potentially so many enemies,
right?
But the Paladin ability doesn't have that liability. It's always at full power, and and the Paladin is going to be right up there, up front, taking on your boss. Like and that's really the thing is like we had an episode where we talked about like how to do a boss fight. Well, a character like a Paladin or a rogue is going to derail a boss fight in a big bad way, and so that's where you need where you're kind of getting into the whole like you were talking about, like you don't want to have to be where we have lots of people, right? But you want to have it just one bad guy versus the team, but it just never works. And
well, sometimes, but yeah, it doesn't work for a while.
Yeah. This is the reason why, and so you have to be able to distribute those resources, of the party's resources around.
I don't think that's a Paladin specific thing by any means, because like you said, rogues can do it if they crit. They have the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Anybody, I'm pretty sure I could get a battle master sharpshooter crossbow expert to do way more damage than a paladin ever can, because of just like the sharpshooter feat is ridiculous, and the crossbow expert is a little ridiculous too.
And once you get higher levels with some of the spells, you can whip out quite a bit of damage.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing. Is 5e is just like that. There's certain combinations where you can just do massive damage, and it's kind of built into the system, because that's why higher level monsters just become giant meat bags of hit points in 5e, right? Which I also think is a flaw in the system. But
yeah, that part's kind of unfortunate. But but I mean, I just for me, I think it's like, I guess it's like where I guess for me, it's like the GM needs to be, because this potentially is an issue in any game, right? And
I agree with you on that. Yeah. The GM should have power to do whatever they want. If they don't, even if they don't like it, like I've had GMs who basically changed how Stunning Strike works on monks because they think it's too powerful. And I kind of agree that he made a pretty good rule, which is if it has a brain, you can stun it. But if it doesn't have a brain, there's no stunning it.
You shouldn't be able to stun a golem.
Right.
And common sense should come into play on this stuff too.
Yeah.
I
but
heard
rules as written, it's powerful.
Okay, one at a time. Marks, you want to talk?
No, go ahead, Marks. Make your horrible pun.
I heard the golem was petrified. There you go. Okay.
But there we go. Yeah.
Yeah. So I agree that and honestly, if I were remaking this system, I'd get rid of sharpshooter. I'd get rid of great weapon master. The damage scale on him is too much. The paladin maybe only have him be able to do it once a round or something like that. Though I see your point of it kind of they don't want to use their spells, but I would actually say for the spells, just make their spells more useful. I think the paladin spells are kind of lame, to be honest, which is why they never use them. But but yeah, I don't know. But at the end of the day, none of those are like so glaringly bad to me that I feel like I need to ban them per se.
Now, Cosmo Knight with a city rat, that's a problem.
Yes, that'd be a problem. Yeah.
What I like in Moons and Masterminds, they have a power point system, and your character levels are like power levels. And so like a Cosmo Knight would start off at level 10 or 11 or something, whereas your city rat might be a level 2 or something character starting out, rather than trying to scale the same level thing. Because that's where the Paladins coming in a problem. They're trying to say like a level 1 Cosmo Knight and a level 1 city rat, they're both level 1. No, they're not.
Well, the other thing is the Palladium system has like 1 million experience charts. They really only need 8 or 6. But anyways, they have 1 million experience charts, and so the mega characters like the dragons and the Cosmo Knights and the Supermen, typically takes about 5,000 experience points to hit level 2, whereas any other character can do that in like 2,000 usually, or 2,200 or something. And so
they
take their scale. Yeah,
they take an older design stance of like you power load them at the beginning and you punish them to.
D&D second edition did that.
To go raise slower.
Yeah. So
what I would say is more modern takes now, and probably if Rifts made a second edition, what they would do is just adjust and have power level ranks, and some of these character classes just start at different levels, because that'd be easier for a GM to juggle. But what I was going to say about Moons and Masterminds is, rather than worrying about the power levels or the classes and stuff, because they're all balanced in their way with the powers, but what I have to do is ban certain powers. So, for example, if you have a murder mystery, which I had one time, I was a GM for that, but I was a player. You have a murder mystery, and somebody's like, "Well, I got resurrection." Boop. And we'll just ask them what happened, and you're like, "No."
And there you go. Like that's exactly the point. It's like, you know that this class is going to be a problem. You don't allow it. By the way, Greg, so when you were talking about like great weapon fighting, that's one where you add +10 to damage with -5 to strike. Is that the one? Okay. So what I did was that, because I use a proficiency die, I have it. You take away the proficiency die and you convert it into damage, so it scales as you level up. So it would start as only a +4 to damage at level 1, but by top level you'd get a +12. So it eventually gets higher, but it scales as you go. So it actually isn't, too much for a low level character.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so
that works better.
Yeah.
A battle master sharpshooter crossbow expert level 11 gets 3 attacks plus a bonus action attack with crossbow expert plus 3 more with action surge, each one doing like freaking 15 to 20 damage. It just gets ridiculous.
Don't forget is that the guys that made that game are very public about their opinion that since nobody plays past level 7, it wasn't worth developing the game as high level. And wonderful. Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't really write anything down for this because it was more a bit of a different format here. All I wrote was ban things if you think they break things and use common sense, like with the stunning strike.
Well, I mean, there is, I mean, it does kind of come down to that. I mean, like, you know, but also it kind of gets back to the idea that the GM should be curating the game, right? Like, think about what you're planning to do with like what kind of stories you want to do, and clearly, certain characters aren't going to be a good fit. I think there's one R in there, Greg. Damn you, Woody. Why did we have to bring a writer to the table? But yeah, like, and some games are designed to be scalable. You know, like set up at different power levels. Like even the new Marvel game I've got up here somewhere was set up that way too. They have, you know,
I think you almost have to superheroes because you have such a dramatic power range.
Well, Heroes Unlimited, which is a great game, is set up that way, and that where you have power, like you can definitely have games at different power levels. So they have some characters are more street level than others. But it also is true that you can, but there's also like a problem with modern game design, which I guess is a whole other topic. But like they kind of like build D&D around the idea that everybody should kick ass kind of equally. But if you go back, you scale the clock back 10, 15, 20 years, you see a different philosophy in game design where it was like, no, the fighter was protecting the party. Like the fighter's purpose was to fight, and the thief was the utility character, and the wizard stood back, and you needed that meat shield. And it's like you wanted the fighter to be more powerful, and that was the point. And
we have an episode about that, I think, don't we?
We may. Yeah, we may.
Yeah,
that's the problem with doing enough of these is we're going to lose track. But like, there is a. Well, I think that may. I don't know. But like, it is a fundamental shift in theory of game design, and I don't think it's necessarily I don't think it's to the benefit of the industry, right? To make everybody equal. Because like they want everybody to participate, but your participation comes from your role in the team, and you're filling a vital function in the party. And you know, having the big power armor character in Rifts, and then you got your city rat character. Those two characters can be side by side, but the GM has to have the responsibility of making sure that all these characters are doing something valuable, right? And
I agree with that. Like you wouldn't expect a bard to do damage and tanking. Like it would make no sense because they're the face. That's what they're supposed to be.
And yet 5e does it, you know?
Yeah.
But then again, in the Rifts example, you might not want to put a glitter boy in the party next to a city rat, because the city rat's built for a particular kind of game. That glitter boy is not going to be the big super power armor suit with the gun that can shoot for 2 miles. That's not a good city encounter character.
They can sneak around very well.
No, they don't. I think it's funny. There's somebody did some artwork in one of the books where there's a glitter boy in a bar. I'm like, are you shitting me? This thing is off the hook.
Then he gets out the armor to get a drink, and the city rat knocks him out and takes his armor.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to find the picture so we
can multi-class now.
Yeah, no, we're closing the show with a picture of the glitter boy, so that way at least.
Oh wait, is that the Rifts book?
Yes, it's this particular.
I made a bet with Mark that if you showed the book, I'd take a shot.
Oh, really? Thanks. Okay, I'm trying to get this framed in right.
Yeah, you can all play along at home if you want.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, this thing's like 10 feet tall.
Yeah, the glitter boy's cool. It's got this layer for anti-lasers, so it glitters. Mm-hmm. It's shiny. That's why I call it.
It's pretty awesome. Do I have another picture of the thing? Nope. All right. So
good old Rifts book.
So am I gonna try to get you drunk then, Greg? Is that the plan?
I'm only doing it once. I don't drink much.
I think that I may call.
I think that's an episode.
Yeah. And of course, third-party character classes is where it comes.
Oh yeah, you're going to mention that.
Yeah.
Don't
always check homebrew classes. They're often way overpowered.
Yeah, usually
ever pull a homebrew class off the web that didn't come from an official publication unless it's been thoroughly peer reviewed.
Even their Unearthed Arcana is usually way overpowered. You know, the one where they're playtesting ones.
Oh my god! I one time had a guy like, "Yeah, you can play with us. This is what you can choose from." He shows up. Can I play a Super Saiyan? Screw you. Anyways, all right.
Well, that's it for today's episode. Don't forget, you can check out our playlists for this and other shows, and on the channel. Subscribe. Keep up to date with what's going on.
Subscribe.
And of course, leave some comments in the comment section. Give your thoughts about this topic. What do you think are some problematic, some troublesome character classes? And
our features or feats or anything.
Or features or feats, something you maybe had to ban in your game. Let us know. I'm making a conversation. So that is it for today. And until next time,
ban you later.
When the dice roll high, we touch the sky. But when they